the shoes, they're walking tall. The skills are balanced, stories unfold, and as we watch, truth will be told. Voices of justice, sound loud and clear. Voices of justice, you'll find the best here. You'll get a sneak peek behind the bench, not what you're thinking or might expect. Judges and lawyers, officials too, here to tell their story to you. Voices of justice, sound loud and clear. Voices of justice, you'll find the best here. You'll get a sneak peek behind the bench, not what you're thinking or might expect. Judges and lawyers, officials too, here to tell their story to you. Voices of justice, voices of justice, sound loud and clear, sound loud and clear. Voices of justice, a battle cry, a battle cry. For the voiceless, the silenced, these stories untold. Standing defenders, resilient and bold. Voices of justice, please hear our call. United in purpose, justice for all. Voices of justice, heard far and wide.
Not, yes, I am. Hello! Oh my gosh, you guys. I am so excited. I am so excited because I have somebody who is just an amazing human and also happens to be an attorney and is going to share some incredible things with us tonight. So, without further ado, here she is. Can you, Jessica, you want to tell everybody about you and what you do?
Sure. Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me this evening. And oh gosh, your music playlist was the bomb. I loved it. I was doing a little dance backstage. I am Jessica Lynn Silva. I am an estate planning and probate attorney, and I'm also a voiceover artist and a coach and a mediator, Florida Supreme Court certified. So I dabble in a lot of things, but my primary practice is estate planning and probate and helping people set themselves up for success and avoid the probate process when we can. So that is the ultimate goal, and I'm so happy to be here this evening.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have you because we've never had anyone talk about this. And after talking to you last weekend, when I got a chance to meet you in person, I thought, okay, we can make this exciting, right? Because, you know,
oh yes,
sometimes it's not the most exciting
actually,
thing, but
that's what I'm known for. I literally have clients say, is it okay to have this much fun at your attorney's office? I get a lot of feedback like that. So ask me any question. I'm an open book.
oh my gosh, I love it so much. Okay. All right. So, well, one thing that I'd like to know is probate. Now, what is probate? Because people talk about wanting to avoid it, but a lot of people don't know what it is.
That is true. And that's a great question, Jen. So probate was created for the benefit of creditors. So it wasn't because they loved us or they loved our loved ones and wanted to make sure they got it. It was literally the creditor's last-ditch effort to attach to the decedent's assets on their way to the beneficiaries. And so the beneficiaries are going to get what's left over after all the order of priority of creditors, PR, attorney fees, and anything else. And then whatever's left then goes to beneficiaries, which is why it gets a bad rap, because it takes court orders, so it moves slowly through the process, and everyone gets to get their hands in the pocket before it gets to the loved one, so they kind of just get the leftovers, and of course they're not okay with that. The probate process is bringing a will to life. And it is very common for people to reach out to me and say, my mom had a will, why do I even need probate? You literally, if you have a will and that's it, you are guaranteeing probate because they go together like peanut butter and jelly. So for that will, for all those assets to be gathered and go to the loved ones, they have to go through an entire process that's about 6 months to a year, depending on if it's a summary or a formal. The way to avoid it is name beneficiaries or have a trust. And if you can do those things while you're alive and competent, then you can skip the process and it goes much more seamlessly, quicker, and less expensive.
Yeah, and you can avoid some things going through probate at all, right? And then avoid people's hands being in the cookie jar. Is it with trusts?
Couple
or
tips.
Is it, okay.
Trusts are definitely an asset. Why kind of in my practice, I have a rule of thumb, I don't push everybody to trust. So I kind of get a feel of my client, their assets, what their goals and wishes are, and their certain family dynamics. If you have blended families, so you have a new stepmom, stepfather, someone and children in the family, if you have minor children, if you own multiple properties, property across state lines, special needs, or you own an LLC or corporation, then you're in trust territory if you're in any of those different parameters.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. So, and here's another question. So, when my mom passed, my brother and I, we do things differently, and she put something in both of our names, and it would have, it would have been better, like, to have two separate assets and two separate things. How can you, you were saying, what if there's blended families and all that? There's a lot to navigate, isn't there? It's not something for people
There
to just print
is.
something online and do it themselves, I guess would be my question.
No. No, and in Florida, we have really strict rules that it's only legally valid if it was signed in the presence of two witnesses and a notary. So you need, and a notary usually cannot be related to the witnesses. So
Okay.
there's some caveats that are simple to follow. They are just very crucial that they are followed. And if you don't, so if say someone knows they're about to pass, they get out a piece of paper, write down their wishes and sign and date it, that is not going to be sufficient to count as a last will and testament. Not in Florida, because it's missing its two witnesses and notary.
So interesting. So somebody writes out something by hand, like you see on TV or whatever, that they just, wrote
Oh
out
yeah.
this note, and they pass away and they think that everything's taken care of. It is not, is it?
No, no, it's not. And so, and another common thing as we come in and we hear the family members, they're like, but mom told me, mom promised. The court's opinion is if mom meant that, then she would have took the time to meet with an attorney, put her wishes in writing so they were legal enforceable documents. Otherwise, anyone can say anything to anyone, but that's not legally binding.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So the whole soap opera thing, not true.
No.
How they're like,
There's usually just little tidbits. I was just watching a show earlier today, and it had something in there, and it said what would play out for intestate heirs, and I'm like, that is not true. His wife is still alive. So, yeah, there's a lot on TV that is not actually completely sound with what would happen in the legal law.
So Dave's asking a question. In the state of
Sure.
Florida, because this is what we were told, is it true that if there are minor children, they automatically inherit the house?
So what happens is there's a rule in Florida that you cannot leave your home to anyone. If you're married or have minor kids, you cannot leave your homestead property to anyone other than them, other than your spouse or your minor children. If it's a spouse, they can waive that right in a prenup or a postnup. And if they do that, then it's legally binding and it's fine. So you could leave it to someone other than a spouse. But minor children, they usually don't have the age. They're not allowed to make decisions until 18. So guardianship always has to be appointed for them. So yes, if you have minor children, you're not going to be able to get away with leaving your house to somebody else other than them. Now, if you have a spouse and she's biological to those children, then typically if you don't have a will, it's all going to go to the spouse. If your children are from a previous relationship, then it's going to go half to spouse and half to your children from a different relationship.
Interesting. And that's not everywhere, though.
I only practice Florida law. So I always
Okay.
tell everyone if it's within Florida, I can assist, but I can't step a toenail outside Florida. So what'll happen is when a lot of my clients own they own in Georgia, North Carolina, New York, those are really popular places because of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Tennessee. Then we create a trust and we put all their Florida property into the trust I create. But then they go and get an attorney in those other states. They spend a little small amount of money and have those attorneys quit claim any real estate they own in those states into my trust. So my trust is valid. I just can't perform that quit claim deed for a property of that state. But it's very inexpensive, and the cost involved is far outweighed by the help it's going to be later. Because what happens is if you pass away with it just in your name and you own in multiple states, we have to open probate in your primary place of residence, so say Florida, and then we have to go open what's called an ancillary probate in every other state you have real estate. So you can see how that adds up really fast, really quickly.
Yeah. And then you lose, or your family loses so much.
They
Wow.
do, because when you have to go through that process, that's when creditors also get to have first dibs before your loved ones. So nobody likes that either.
Wow. No. No. Okay. So, well, okay. So I've already learned things and we're just a few minutes in. This is so interesting to me. So, and another thing that I try to tell everybody who has minor children is you need to have a will. You need to say, what is the best way to say where your children are going to go? Because people who don't write that down, who makes the decision?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. And that is something big that I tell people. If they have minor children, you absolutely 100%. A trust is a good idea. And in there, one, because the will say who the guardian of the assets and guardian of the children are, but then we can keep it held and sheltered in trust on their behalf so that it's well. Because what happens is if you don't, in Florida, children cannot inherit over $15,000 without guardianship involved, and guardianship is super expensive. But if you've already laid out those guardianship choices, it's just a matter of getting them in motion. If you did not, there's going to be guardianship attorneys appointed and travel it, and then finding someone, the judge picking, and then they can deplete some of the assets for their fee because they don't do it for free. And then that's kind of where, they make movies out of people that the trust are depleted before the person ages and gets to take control of their own assets. So it's always just a great thing that, I tell my clients, if you do it while you're alive and competent, it's super easy, and it's actually I think it's an exciting process because I see how much chaos and expense it saves for the family, and it's so simple to put in motion in present time. If we wait and kick the can down the road, then we are eligible for Jerry Springer shows because family dynamics, when you deal with money and power, I have seen close relationships be destroyed over money. And sometimes it's not even a large amount of money. Like it can be big or small. The amount doesn't really matter. It's just the power play and the distribution. And then the whole process is just so stressful. It just kind of wears on people and wears on the relationship.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Also, hey, Bubba. Bubba is here saying what's up. We are talking about probate, which doesn't sound very exciting, but we're making it more exciting, and it will be great if you guys have questions. Ask. She's not going to give you a bunch of free legal advice, but she can let you know how to keep your assets safe. Because this is really important. You're working, you have a job, you're making money, and you don't want it to be gone. And your children, you want to decide where they go. So here's another question. Let's say you have children, right? And you do have some things for them to inherit, but you don't necessarily have someone that you think would be the greatest to oversee everything. What do you do?
Are you saying the biological parent where you've gone through a divorce, but they still have custody rights, but you don't want them to be in charge if you
No, like
if you
for
hate
somebody
your
outside of the parents, right? So you think, well, what if something happened to us? Who would be in charge of the kids, right? Not everybody has somebody that they would trust.
That is correct. So if you do your estate plan while you're alive and competent, you can choose. And it's very common. I have seen a huge trend in the past few years where people are not choosing family members. They actually are choosing family, friends that they're super close to. They like that because one, they're more involved with their family. They see them more often. They vacation together. Their kids are really comfortable with them. They're also younger. They know their religious preferences. They know their way of life preferences. And they just are kind of like, I don't want my 70, 80-year-old parents raising my children. I want them to still have the fun, exciting lifestyle, and my best friends get it. And I know they would love my kids like their own. If you leave an estate plan saying that, easy peasy. If you do not, they're going to be nowhere on the radar, and they will be going up with a big fight in guardianship court against blood to try to compete for that spot. And they're not going to have the highest priority with the judge. But if you make those wishes known in a preemie guardian for minors and in your trust and will, very simple.
Okay. A Corzo's family is asking, should I transfer my deed over to a trust? If so, what's my first step? That is
You can, in Florida, we actually, so for some of my older clients, a trust avoids the probate process. So they're wonderful and they are a well tool that pays for themselves many times over if you're in one of those circumstances that I'd mentioned earlier. Blended families, multiple properties, property across state lines, LLC, S Corps, C Corps, those type things, and minor children and special needs. If you don't, if you're some of my older clients that come in and they're in their 70s and 80s and they just own their one house, it's their homestead, and then they own a checking, a savings, a life insurance, an investment, then we can still avoid the probate process without going through an expense of a trust for those certain individuals, because sometimes a trust is a little overwhelming for those. So what happens is in Florida, we have something called a Ladybird deed, and that's pretty much naming a beneficiary for your house. So if you know who you want to get your house and they're over 18, then you literally can have me prepare a deed that just says the house is yours. You can sell it, refinance it, do whatever you wish. But if you still own it when you pass, who we named as a remainderman will instantly have ownership. And they will spend a whopping $10 to record your death certificate, and the house is theirs in 5 minutes. So they don't need me, they don't need probate, they don't need court, they don't need anything. And then how they would have set up their other assets is they would have just gone to their bank and gone to their savings and insurance, and they literally would just name their loved ones as the payable on death beneficiaries. So you just tell those facilities, if I pass, here's who's allowed to have my funds. And if you do those things, you're good. Like you avoided the probate process and don't need an attorney.
very cool. Okay, and they're in California, so she had said she practices in Florida. But and then it says, can I put conditions?
You can't put conditions on a Ladybird deed, but a trust is a beautiful tool where you can be as strict or as restrictive, or you can be as lenient as you wish. So you can simply say, I want my successor trustee to use their own discretion. So if the beneficiaries can sweet talk the successor trustee, they get their way. Or you can be very, very strict, and your successor trustee can only play in those boundaries, and you've tied their hands. So that is completely up to you. The beautiful thing about trust is they're not filed with the court after passing, and not even a judge sees them unless there's a litigation, which is pretty rare. So they're a beautiful tool where there's not a lot of micromanaging, and you have the freedom to kind of express yourself and put your wishes in there on how you want things to play out.
That is so cool. Okay, now here's a question. So let's say you decide not to give your house to your family for whatever reason, and you do the Ladybird deed. Can they fight it? Can people fight that?
No, it's instantly, if you're alive and competent, then you have the freedom, unless you are married and your spouse did not waive their rights in a prenup or a postnup. But if your children are not minors, and either you're not married or your spouse has a prenup or postnup, you have the freedom to leave whoever you wish. That can be a friend, a neighbor, charity. That can be a dog. They literally make Netflix movies where people leave their millions to a pet, and then you name a guardian of the pet. So that's always fun, and you'll have a whole waiting list to be guardian because, Fido needs a first class trip to Hawaii. And it's your job to make sure Fido is happy. So that makes for interesting. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, people are pleasantly surprised and shocked when they realize how much freedom they have to do whatever they wish with their hard-earned assets.
Yeah, that's nice. Hey, Deepak, hey, everybody. Corso family said thank you very much. Wow. So we also have silly questions, but we're going to take the real questions, guys. We're going to take real questions. So I think Rando, with the name like Rando, you're going to randomly do what you want. So there you go. I don't know what to tell you about that. So I'm trying, what are some pitfalls that people don't know ahead of time that they can avoid if they see an attorney like you?
Okay, so people don't realize if they name beneficiaries of their assets, then they will skip the probate process. So creditors don't get a chance to attach, and they don't need me, and they don't need court. Everything, their loved ones can literally go straight in, show their death certificate and their ID, and they'll get the funds in 5 minutes. If they don't, they're going to hear the words come back with court order or letters of administration. And that means go find me and open probate, and then come back after you're appointed as personal representative executor and go through the whole entire process. So that's kind of one. The other key is if you have minors, make sure you have documents that list who you want to be guardian of your babies and also what ages you want your babies to inherit, because a lot of families don't think their 18-year-old should be handed millions of dollars. And then there I have other clients that are comfortable with, they just don't want any guardianship in place. So as soon as they're 18, they can have the keys to the kingdom. So you get that discretion to make it as you wish. And it's not written in stone. So that's another thing I love for people to know is as long as you're competent and alive, you can amend and make changes as much as you wish. So you, just because you did it today doesn't mean you can't change your mind a year later, 2 months later, whenever you want.
Okay. That's really good to know. Yeah. Because sometimes you think you want to do things one way and then you realize maybe that person doesn't need all those things, or
Well,
maybe
it's
they
really
need them
common
later.
too. You leave to friends and then you have a falling out, or it's very common that some people don't get married anymore, but they have long-standing girlfriends and boyfriends, even in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And it's crucial that they have an estate plan because otherwise, if you're not married, you don't have no marital interest rights. So you are nowhere on the radar that you're going to inherit under the intestate law. So it's important that you account for them if you want them to be your spokesperson or you want them to inherit your assets. But sometimes that has a falling out and you just need to go back and amend all your documents because the power you gave to someone, you don't want them to keep it. You want to take that power away, and that's totally okay. Where it gets cautious is if you lose capacity, or you're in a coma or you've passed, you've lost the window. So then whatever was last done is going to be frozen, and that's what's going to be enacted and gone through. People usually litigate if you're older and you're on the edge of hospice and you have certain family member trying to gently prod you along and you're barely coherent, but they're trying to use their influence. That's called undue influence and duress. And that can be what's brought into litigation, where another family member thinks someone's being coerced.
Yeah. We've dealt with all kinds of stuff in our family. Let me tell you what. So, and also the ugly seems to come out when there's money involved and people have passed.
Oh, yes, very much. That's where I say the Jerry Springer. I have a family law attorney friend who's also one of our Florida state representatives. And I was with her once and watching her prep for trial. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want your job. I was like, that's so much drama. She's like, Jess, what are you talking about? You do family law for dead people. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point, actually. So yeah, there's still drama in my field.
Oh, yeah. Yes, there is. There's so much drama. I mean, we
Yes.
haven't had anyone pass in our families without drama. Like there's always drama.
Mm-hmm.
So to avoid the most, oh, wait, somebody says, okay, somebody's asking, relationship questions. And the thing is, you be yourself,
Aw.
and then the right girl will like you, right? There we go. It's not about probate, but also. I feel like a lot of guys think that they have to not be, the right girl will be nice. Anyway, all right. But anyways, getting back to it. Okay, so you're young, you're competent, you've got minor children. You write a will, right? Because you want them to have a will. You want to say where your children go. Do you need a trust if your minor children are automatically going to inherit the house?
Well, the trust is because if they're minors, they can't inherit and take ownership until at least 18. If you have it in trust, you can make that age be longer than 18. You can say 21, 25, 27, 30, 40. That is totally your wish. The courts just care about 18 is the age where they said you magically know what you're talking about and can make big decisions. But under than that, it is crucially important that you have a trust because you need to make sure that the guardianship is handled and all of the different pieces are in play as they should be. Because otherwise, if they're under 18, the courts will step in and have guardianship appointed, and that's that expensive process that you want to avoid at all cost. So if you have little ones and my clients that are just starting their families and they're young, we definitely are in trust territory for those situations.
Okay. All right. And make sure that it's somebody that's trustworthy. But, is it now, let's say I don't know, you assume somebody was a great person. Can they actually siphon off that money before your child turns 18? Is that something that happens sometimes?
It does, and that's why the movies are made of the evil stepmother that wipes out a trust fund that's supposed to be meant for a child. I mean, most TV and everything is based with a hint of truth, either in the criminal court system or the civil or all the different things that play out. And that's why trusts do have a lot. There's a beneficiary or someone watching out for the minor if they felt like something was going on. But a successor trustee does have a legal obligation, the guardian, to provide an annual just report every single year showing all the pennies in and all the pennies out. And they are to provide that to show that they've been handling their role and responsibilities in a fiduciary as they should. So if anyone ever questions it, they could try to bring it up and have that successor trustee removed, or if they ever felt there was something going on.
Okay. So that's good. So there's a safeguard in place.
Yeah, and if it's a child, though, it would need to be someone that's over 18 that's going to bat for them in the court system, because the little ones aren't going to be able to.
Yeah. Good. This is a lot. It's a lot. And that's why we need attorneys. That's what I always tell people. I will never give legal advice. My only legal advice is get a qualified attorney, because you know all the things.
It's so easy. I always tell people, my tagline is "Don't leave a mess, call Jess," because it really is easy to set yourself up for success if you do it just today. Like if you wait, things happen, chaos, crazy, and then it gets all the things, and usually something happens to a friend or family member and they go through a mess, and then that's what gets them into my office. And they're like, I just went through horror and I don't want that to happen to my family, so I need you. I realize now everything you guys have been saying is actually true, so I need you. So that's why I do a lot of speaking engagements and be a guest. Is to put the word out there, to realize, change the game, that attorneys are approachable and you're welcome to ask us questions, and we want to help educate you so that you maybe don't need us or need us very minimally later. So I want to, and I welcome the questions.
That's awesome. And you might say, but I have to pay money to an attorney. And yes, you do, but you're going to save so much more than you would lose if you didn't do this up front.
You do, but they actually aren't as expensive as you would think. And their guidance is invaluable, especially like anything, like doctors, real estate agents, all the fields. You have your wonderful ones, your diamonds, and then you have some rough ones that give everyone a bad name. And then you have your just normal, they're above average. So, I mean, there's, like any industry, there's your rock stars, and the rock stars usually float to the top because people are very happy with their services and they talk and they share, and so they're there to find. And you'll know in 5 minutes when you talk to someone or call their office if you like the vibe or not.
Sorry, I'm listening to things outside my door. It's loud. I apologize.
No worries.
We're having a children's situation.
Oh, yeah, children. I was a mom at 18, so that's kind of what started me on my whole trajectory, is being a single parent.
I wanted to ask you about that, because there's a lot of people that say, I can't go to law school, I can't do whatever because it's so expensive and it's so much time. But you did this as a single mom.
I did. Law school, I did not. I was married by then, but I have 4 degrees, and I did do my first degree as a single mom, and I worked as a paralegal for Brock and Scott. And I went in and I commuted about 3 hours round trip. I lived in North Carolina at the time. And then I met and married my husband, and when my son was 4, and being that I worked for attorneys, they did the adoption for me. So that was wonderful. And then my husband is retired Air Force, and so he served 26 years. And so we did a lot where we traveled to different states and different countries and doing all the things that you do in those regards. And we had 2 more children. So right now we have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. So that's where we are right now. And I have 4 degrees. So, and my law firm is in Tampa and Satellite Beach, but I handle the whole state of Florida. And so that's what I will do. And then I also do a little modeling and voiceover and coaching and things like that. So we stay busy and I enjoy it.
So busy. Yeah. And it's so amazing because, and because you just said you're a grandmother and you do modeling. I think that is so incredibly wonderful.
It
So
started when I was in law school. Law school can be very mind-boggling in attorneys. Attorneys, that's one of the biggest struggles that can happen is it's such a stressful position and your job is to advocate and fix problems for thousands of clients. So that's a lot of pressure. So with all that pressure you can fall into addictions or you can have it or you just mental issues. So reading, the occasional Netflix day, or modeling and acting and going and being on set for 15 hours was my de-stress to keep me away from anything that's bad. So I never fell into those traps because I used modeling and acting as a way to already just kind of be away from the legal entity and kind of just take a breather for a day.
I love that. I love it so much. And also, you're stunningly gorgeous, so that helps.
Oh,
Be able to
thanks.
do things like that. But oh my gosh, wow, that is so. How did you do it going through school as a single mom? Because I know, and my husband's asking if your husband plays golf. I don't know why, but there we go. That's a question.
He doesn't, but my old boss, Judge Silverman, does. And so he did take
There
me
you
and
go.
try to teach me. I lasted 9 holes, so I'm probably, but I did learn the basics. And then I need to go stay up on it. But no, my husband is a graphic artist, so he was a graphic artist for special ops. And then after he retired, he went back as a contractor. And then he also created a Hawaiian clothing line because he's from Hawaii. So he designs his very own line and sells that. So that's his love and his interest is doing things in that world.
That is incredible. Yeah, my golf is we get a cart, throw the ball on the green, and just putt. There we go.
Okay, that sounds fun.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun for me,
Mhm.
riding in the cart, but that
There's
is
no
the
one way
extent.
for everybody. And
Right?
that's the whole point of
That's the fun
life
way.
is just learning. You get one, make it high quality and just enjoy it every single day.
Right?
Hmm.
And just do the
I had that
things.
wake up call about 5 years ago. In November 2020, I had 3 offices at the time in Vieira, Satellite Beach, and Tampa. And my daughter and I were in a car accident, and it was not our fault. Someone hit us, threw us in I-4, and then hit the car in front of us. And 2 weeks later, my dad died. And then we had a domino effect where lots of crazy things happened in one. So all of a sudden, it took a couple years and 6 months where it like threw me off. And then I came to the realization that, you know what? We only get one, and I'm not stalling anymore. If I have an opportunity, I'm taking it. If I have a chance to enjoy life, I'm doing it. So, and then I deal with death every day in probate. So I'm very much different where I'm not going to wait for tomorrow. I'm doing it today.
See, that's how I am too. My doctors told me I had a year to live in 2018, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so I do everything I can when I can.
Yes.
So people are always saying, "Why are you doing so many things, and why do you do this so quickly?" Like I decided to write a book, and I published it in 2 weeks, and it was crazy,
That's
but
phenomenal.
it was, and it stayed at #1 for over 30 days on Amazon. So yeah, it was incredible. I asked people to contribute, and I said, "You're going to contribute. You have 2 days to write something, and it's going to be a
Yeah.
bestseller." And it was, and they did, and it
That's
was
so
amazing.
cool.
But I think that's the thing when you've gone through something like you went through the car,
Mhm.
you realize, why am I going to just sit back and wait, right?
Mhm.
Because it's
Oh
time
yeah,
is
for sure.
fleeting. You just don't
Hmm.
know.
It
So
is.
why not just get out there and enjoy life and do what you can do?
Well,
And
that's
in
where
the,
you also realize the simple joys actually bring you the most pleasure. So that's where you figure out that so for your husband, that might be being on the golf course. For someone else, that might be relaxing on the beach with a good book. For others, that is a private jet or a trip to Rome. So it's like everybody has their different piece of what brings them joy and happiness. And sometimes if it's the simple, cheaper way, you realize you could actually be very happy every single day because that's what you like the most. So that's
right.
where it works. Mm-hmm.
And people just don't realize also Love Yourself has got an incredible deal for you. But also she's already married, so that probably is not going to work. Oh my
Ew.
goodness. I was talking to somebody the other day. Oh, I got to sit up straight for this one. Are you ready? And their husband was kind of a sassy guy. And she's
Hmm.
like, yeah, but also he went and married somebody else. And I'm
Oh.
like, okay, that is beyond the normal sassiness. That is, yeah, like went to another country, got married. Did the whole other life
Hmm.
thing, which you hear
So
about
we
on
kind of
TV, but you
discussed
never see.
that. We discussed that in law school. Like if bigamy and all that became legalized, how would that affect estate plans and intestacy rights and all that? Because you have multiple
Right.
wives and then you have multiple children. So yeah, there was a lot of debates that went on just because some people weren't into the monogamous route and they just didn't feel like they should have to stop at one. So that wasn't the side I was on. I felt like that would cause way too many more complications and family dynamics and fights and premeditated murder and all the things. But yeah, I mean, just saying. But there were some that were very adamant and they had some points that they wanted to bring. But I don't know. It definitely is a thing. We have one of our old neighbors. He's in the cyber world, and he had a whole second family that his first family didn't even know about. And we all
Wow.
found out about it a couple years. That's way too much effort. I'm gonna stay just loyal to the one I've
Right?
been with.
No, 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 no. Yeah, we had friends in Tennessee. They had two wives, but one legally, and the other one whatever. I don't know. I mean, personally, no. I love my husband. That's just
Hmm.
no. You know. Mm-mm.
It's a lot of
But
effort. You get pretty exhausted keeping your relationships with friendships and spouse alive and in a good place that I can't imagine adding multiples. That'd be a lot. But that's for
no.
me personally. Yeah.
Sister Wives. It is Sister Wives all over again. Oh my gosh, I did. I watched that for a while, and then I was like, it's just too much. It is just too
Mm-hmm.
much.
Nope,
So
but some key tips I would want your listeners to know is one, some of them might not be familiar with the right of offset. That is something where if you have your checking and savings at the same place that you have credit cards and auto loans, that where most creditors have to wait for the probate process to be open, or they have to file a caveat that they want to be made aware if it opens, and then they have to file a creditor claim and wait in line to get paid, then the right of offset is a fine print that every time you open a bank account, you don't realize you're agreeing to it. That says if you had 20,000 with Bank of America and you have a credit card with 20,000 balance with Bank of America, they can just step in and rip out your money, so not go to your family. So that's something that I always try to mention to people. Try to have your credit card and auto loans with a place different than your checking and savings, if at all possible, because then that forces them to follow the proper procedure and saves more money for your loved ones.
okay, that is a great. Yes, I had no idea about that. Now, is
Most
that
don't.
just Florida or everywhere?
I'm pretty sure it's national, but I'd have to check. I always stay in my bubble, but I have seen an increase with banks actually enforcing it in the past year. That's why I've become way more outspoken about it. And it did happen to one of my clients, and I did challenge it, and I won, which is like unheard of, and I'm super excited about. But I always tell people I won against this particular bank, but I really don't feel like going up against every bank. So I'd rather you just,
Right.
take my caution, my precautionary, and not even have to go through the issues, not even have to have the attorney to battle it out and see. Just, you can avoid all of that by doing it, setting yourself up for success in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and you think it would be easier, right? Just have everything all in one place. Your bank already knows you.
Yeah,
But
and that's how
would
we
you?
do it. We're creatures of habit, so we're taught, and we don't even ask why. And we just kind of all do something because that's the way it's always been done. And then you don't realize that was actually not the wisest way to do it until it slaps you in the face. And by then it's too late to try to do damage control unless you get an attorney who's willing to challenge it, like I did. So that's kind of just something. And then if you're older, Ladybird deeds can be a great tool for some people, or trust are an excellent tool. And then naming beneficiaries for your assets. So if you have minors, then you would name spouse and trust as the beneficiary. If your kids are all adults and you want them to just get it the second you pass, then you can name the trust, or you can just name them as the beneficiaries. But the key is to name it. If you pass away and your assets do not have joint account owners, named beneficiaries, or in trust, then you're going through the probate process. You are guaranteeing the probate process.
Okay.
Let's
When
see, Cynthia. When the only living parent dies, do the kids have to resume her debts and pay them off? Well, they're saying so when the only living parent dies, no. So that's a great question. So what'll happen is the kids are not responsible first unless they had actually added themselves as joint account owners to credit cards and things or said they would be responsible. Then no, you're not legally responsible for the medical bills and the credit cards and all those things. What happens though is if mom dies and she has 30 grand sitting in checking and she did not name her adult kids as the POD, payable and death beneficiary, the kids can't get to it without probate. And in probate, once they open probate, that now was created for the benefit of creditors. So creditors have higher priority than the beneficiaries. And that's where it gets sticky. Me personally, when a creditor files a claim, I object. And when I object, I put them on notice and they have 30 days to file an independent action in civil court. 99% of the time, they don't do it. It's not worth their time, energy, and money to challenge me. Medicaid, they keep an attorney on standby, and then I can come back with it was wrongful death, or I have a minor beneficiary, or if I have any of those cards up my sleeve. If I don't have those, then it's like, all right, let's negotiate. What will you guys take to go away so that we can move this along? Or if the estate, my personal representative and attorneys, my own fees, we are higher priority even over creditors. So sometimes if I can pay my personal representative their fee, if after their fees paid and after they're reimbursed for my fees and funeral home, then there might be nothing left. And we're like, okay, you're a valid creditor, but there's nothing left to pay with you with. So there's a lot of different strategies and situations that play out in the process. And if you have a good attorney, they'll look through and look for ways to help you and your beneficiaries.
That is incredible advice. And TKR says, don't go into debt. Yeah, I think that's advice number one.
Well, if you listen to Robert Kiyosaki and Grant Cardone and people like that, some debt can be good. OPM, other people's money. The key is to always, like anything, if you can't handle it and handle it wisely, then stay away from it. If you can utilize it and do it in a way that actually is a benefit, because some people, they'll actually buy rental properties and they keep them mortgaged as a level of protection. So for against lawsuits, just because the mortgage company will get paid before, so it kind of deters. So those are different situations. So it's a tool. Debt can be used as a tool like anything else, but you just want to strategize and see if the pros outweigh the cons.
Okay, so wait, let's go back to this, keeping it mortgaged for your protection. How does that protect you?
Well, 'cause what happens is if you own, so it's very common for a lot of my clients, they'll own 8, 10, 11 homes. And they have options. If they want to get it out of their name, then they can do LLCs, limited liability companies, or they can do land trust, or they can do revocable living trust, where it's still an extension of them, but it just kind of is a small deterrent against creditors. They can have it in a trust name and it avoids the probate process. So if you're doing LLCs, you don't want to put all 11 houses under one LLC, because if that LLC got sued, it gets to go after all the assets of it. So that means you have to have a different LLC for each one. That means you have to have a different bank account for each one. And that means every rental agreement has to have the landlord as that each LLC. And LLCs have annual reports that have to be filed every year, and they come with a small fee. So people just get annoyed. They just don't want all that. So I'll have some people that are like, you know what, Jess, just create me a revocable living trust. I'm going to put all my homes in it. I'll get an umbrella insurance policy and I'll call it a day. But if they're all liquid and they're totally paid off, they can be a little more vulnerable to, we live in a litigious society. So somebody might trump up a party or say they slipped and falled, or, those type things. If they see they have mortgages, then when they go to hire an attorney and they do a check of their assets and they see they're all mortgaged up, then they'll be less likely to be like, okay, these are not debt free. It's not going to be as easy money as we first thought. I don't know if it's really going to be worth it. So that's kind of where there's a little slight deterrence. They're not fail safe, they're deterrents. And so sometimes people will do it as a strategy. Or they'll do it because they just want to take the mortgage interest deduction and different things like that, and keep some of their other funds liquid to use for other things.
This is so good. I am so excited about this. Thank you, because I wouldn't have thought that
You're
was
so
that was a thing, because you think paying off property is good, but maybe not always.
Not always. Like, right, especially pre-COVID, where everyone was having like 2 and 3% interest rates. But in those, it's almost like free money. So you don't want to be in a rush to pay that off because it's there, it's applying, it gets a deduction, and it's like 2% interest rate. So it's so wonderful that why not? Every single, and I tell people that I've dealt with thousands of clients. I've been in law over 25 years. So it's from paralegal, judges JA, attorney, uh, owner of a law firm and attorney. And a sort of mediator. So I've seen a lot of different sides of it because I've also done criminal law, family law, insurance defense, and then estate planning, probate, and civil. So I've done quite a few different realms and enough to know to see all the drama play out and know which areas I love and which areas I want nothing to do with. So it's very eye-opening. And in all of them, there are red flags and there are green flags. So if you pay attention to them, you can kind of set yourself up for success and be a little more prepared.
And hire someone like you. Who knows?
Yeah. And you're always welcome to do that too.
Who knows what the flags are? Yeah, because we don't know what we don't know, and that's the thing. Like a lot of these things, I didn't know. So this is, and I thought I thought I was doing pretty well knowing the all those end of will and probate questions. So this is
And
incredible.
that's normal. People get afraid to ask, and that's why I like to have conversation. And that's what I tell people because I know in my grandparents' generations, you never discussed. Like you did not bring up the topic of what they owned and who was getting it. Like that was taboo. It was just going to be a surprise to everybody when grandma and grandpa died of who got to inherit. Now people are realizing death and taxes and assets, like it is what it is. And it's actually very wise to have that conversation. Even the Terry Schiavo, one of my documents is a living will. And it just says if you end up in a coma and the only thing keeping you alive is tubes, where do you stand with that? Do you want to be left on tubes if you're brain dead, if that's 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years, 40 years? Some people are adamant they want it no matter what. Other people are like, do not do that to me. As soon as you know there's nothing else you can do, give me morphine, let me pass, collect life insurance, move on. So your family doesn't know unless you tell them and have that conversation. It's a very easy conversation to have now, even over games, a game of cards. It's a very horrible conversation to have when you're in the middle of it. And I know that personally because when my dad passed, my mom was presented with that. It's really hard to go through. My dad always wanted to avoid that topic. And my three brothers, all four of us, had a difference of opinion on what mom should be doing. And it really hurt the family dynamics for quite a few years because everyone had differences. And that's not the time. If dad had just been open and told us, then nobody would have had anything to fight about because it would have been as easy as we're doing dad's wishes. Like simple, end of story. But nobody knew dad's exact wishes, so everyone had their own version of what dad would have wanted, and that's where all the drama came in, and the heartache, and the sleepless nights, and the crazy. And Terry Schiavo is a very big national case that everyone recognizes, and the husband wanted to pull the plug, and the mom did not, and it ended up in court battle for years and years to figure out who had the right to decide what to do.
Yeah. What did they decide with that? I don't remember what the end result of that was.
They ended up, I believe, going and pulling the plug because they didn't have a living will. If they had a living will and Terry had told people her wishes, it would have been easy peasy. It would have been over in 10 minutes in deciding on who had the authority to say what to do. But because there was no clear cut of her wishes, that's where it ended up in a huge turmoil.
Hi, Prajan. How are you?
Anything.
We're good. How are you? I'm guessing that you are on the other side of the world, which is very exciting. We've got people joining us from India, which I absolutely love. And obviously,
cool.
Our legal system is going to be different and how things happen are going to be different. So if you know what happens with will, if you're in the audience and you know how things happen in another country, we would love to hear about that because I think that's fascinating. And
very much.
Yeah. So thank you for saying hello. And I had the best question and now I don't.
You forgot it?
I did
It'll come
forget
back.
it. Oh my gosh. So, living will. Okay. So, It was about living wills, and do I remember? I don't. You know, I know my dad was a DNR, which is do not resuscitate, and
Mm-hmm.
they did not follow that because someone was there, my mom, who said not to do it, to do it, and they did it, and yeah, that was rough. But I think they're better now. This was in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
about following, maybe, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, they're very much. People have gotten a lot more. They'll wear bracelets saying their wishes. They'll have the yellow paper taped to the side of their fridge. There's people that'll even tape it inside their chest. And so if you rip it open, especially the older clients, like they become, people always think the DNR, you should do it to save your life. But especially when you're in your 80s and 90s, most times when they have to do it, they break a rib, they do stuff. So it's not as like painless as you would think. It comes with a lot of damage. And for an 80 or 9-year-old to now have broken ribs or a punctured lung or something on top of everything else, that's more like a slow death than it is. So that's why they've gotten a lot more adamant. People would wake up at times and sue them for actually saving their life because they didn't want them to. So it became a little controversial all across the board.
Yeah, wow, that is wow.
Mm-hmm.
We have 9 minutes left. This has been incredible. I am fascinated by this conversation. There's been a lot of people that join us. We've had about 4,000 people so far. So if you have jumped in here, we would love to know if you have any questions or anything. Be sure to hit the subscribe and the like button. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers right now. I am very excited about this, and we're going to have a party. It's going to be amazing and give you all a bunch of stuff. So definitely do that. Because you know I like presents. Presents are good. Let's see what else before we go. Is there anything? Let's say somebody wanted to contact you and they lived in Florida. If they live in another place, you can't really do anything because you practice exclusively in Florida. Correct.
I practice exclusively in Florida, but I do belong to Facebook groups where it's like 9,000 women attorneys. There are others across the United States. So I'll always, and I, being that I do ancillaries or I'm the primary and vice versa, I have connections in several states where I've had to work with them across state lines for different circumstances. But yes, on a personal level, I handle everything within Florida, all of the counties, and they are always welcome to check out my website at jessicalynnlaw.com. And you're also welcome to go to my Instagram, which is Jess dot Lynn, Lynn dot Silva, Silva. And if you DM me the word estate, Estate, it will send you one of my estate planning guides too for free that you can download and kind of gives you some helpful tips and tricks.
That is so cool. That's not. Is that Stampede
But we
Social that
also,
does that?
mini chat is the word
Okay.
I did that with.
Very
And it's
cool.
on my Insta. It's a new thing that I just added. So let me know if it's easy to do and you like it because the tools, it just kind of gets it to them in real time versus emailing my office and then getting a hold of things and scheduling. This is just something, some free tools you can get in 2 seconds.
Nice. Okay.
And I do, I'm married to military, and my daughter-in-law is Navy. My son served 6 years in the Navy. He's a firefighter. So I'm really big in the police, military, and firefighter, being that my husband was 26 years as well. My father-in-law was retired Army. My dad was retired Air Force and FEMA. My grandparents. So I'm very pro that. So I do offer complimentary consults for our active and retired military, police, and firefighters, and I do offer discounts off my services for those entities. So always feel free to tell my office when you call if you're one of those.
That is awesome. Okay. Um, well, we can just do some things. There we go. My moderator. We have one moderator, and let me tell you what, we need more than one today. So it's a good thing. Is this a QVC? This is not a QVC office. There are episodes. We're talking about law and probate and how to save your assets for your family. Yeah, and she is super gorgeous. I'll tell you what. We're gonna keep it PG though. Whatever you're saying, Conmar is just gonna stay that way. We have had issues. Let me tell you what. I have learned phrases I did not know existed. Anyway, okay, so
gosh.
oh yeah, it's a thing. We can get people can get advice. They can get your giveaway, which is absolutely incredible. And you have an Instagram, and do you give tips on your Instagram as well?
I'm getting better. I wasn't always as committed to staying on social. I stay really, really busy with my multiple offices. So I stay pretty back to back, slammed with everything that I do on a daily basis. But I am learning the importance of social media, and I am trying to just offer more tidbits and helpful information to the audience as a whole. So I am getting very committed to doing daily posting. So as you stick with me, if you'd like to give me a like and follow, you'll start seeing it grow very much, where you'll have a lot of great tools and tips and advice out there.
That is really great. Well, yeah, that would be really hard to keep up with as an attorney. I am having a hard time keeping up with it, and this is what I do. So, yeah, because there's a lot of places to be. So, anyway, all right. Well, there's 5 minutes. If you have a legal question or something about probate or wills or any of that, feel free to ask it. And yeah, we're just going to kind of wrap up. And yeah, this has been. Well, for me, it's been very enlightening, and I appreciate it so very much. Dave, do you have more questions? Does anybody? There's a lot of you here. Don't be shy. Everybody's being so quiet today, and yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah, you're welcome to ask me questions about my personal, about my modeling, acting, law, anything you guys would like to know is completely fine. I've traveled. I love the sun, don't love the cold. We spent 4 years in Minot, North Dakota. -50 is not my jam. Great people there. Love the friends we made there, but can't handle the cold. I love a sunshine and a palm tree.
yeah, me too. I'm not a cold fan. So, how long have you been an attorney?
I have been an attorney since 2018, practicing attorney, and then all the others I worked as the right hand to a judge for 4 years, and then I also was a paralegal in a lot of different arenas of law, which a paralegal is the right hand to an attorney. So you pretty much does. And then I have my staff. So that's the fun part when you do the job before you become and grow. You remember what it was like to be in that position. So it's fun.
Yeah, I would imagine that would help a lot.
I loved being a paralegal. There's so many days you're tempted to go back to being a paralegal. It's fun. It's kind of like being a doctor versus a physician assistant. And so, or the nurse,
Yeah.
you got like all this different, you have a lot of hard work, but you kind of get all the pressure of decision making off your shoulders and you just get to follow the lead. And the job is fun, more relaxed.
But the nice thing is you don't have the pressure of keeping people out of jail or things like that. So
Nope, I did that for years where I worked, when I did with Judge, we did criminal law and civil and family law. So I got to see a lot of dynamics, a lot of injunctions issued, and then the people who were swearing he wanted to kill her and her kids today, she would call back the following week and beg for us to release the injunction because he said he was sorry and the kids want to see him. So it's sad. The domestic violence world is its own issue, and that is why I did serve on a board, the Women's Center, and I'm very big in supporting the New Life mission locally in different counties. So things just to kind of give back, because there is a lot of pain and suffering, and a lot of that filters into the court system, including our veterans. Our military veterans have a lot that haunts them, and that makes them make unwise choices that lands them in the courtroom. So there's a lot of hurting people out there, a lot of ways to do good and help them try to get back on the right track.
that is beautiful. That is, yeah, definitely giving back is a good thing. The last person that was here with me last time is an attorney that was from Colorado, and she,
Cool.
she was a family attorney. She ended up having to leave Colorado because she was a whistleblower, and it did not go well. So we just heard a lot of stories last time about some very not good things. So this is good though. This is positive. All of you are going to go out and set everything up for success.
That's why I love my niche, because I feel like my niche provides a career, but it's a career that literally is helping advocate for my clients and set them up for success so they see the win and the value of their dollars spent in real time. It gives them peace of mind and it sets them up for success. And so that's a win-win in my book.
Absolutely. And then people are happy, but as happy as they're going to be when when they've lost someone. But at least they're not losing that person and all the things, So,
Right.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's 9:59. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to wrap up. And thank you so much. Don't go anywhere, Jessica, but we're going to say goodbye to everybody else. Goodbye. Mwah. I love you all. We've got some incredible things coming. Just so you know, I'm going to be in Europe next week and the week after. So we'll be coming live to you from Germany and then from England. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And we have a surprise guest for Thursday. So we'll see you then. Jessica, thank you again. You're amazing.
You're so welcome. Thank you.